One Piece, chapter 1154 is everything we've ever wanted and more. I mean, I can't start to break down the hype, right? Because the reaction was a lot. But this chapter was fantastic. We're going to break it down. You guys know the drill. We're going to go from the cover story all the way back. Yes, I'm with you, right? The hype of this chapter is that man. And we're going to talk about that man, the implications of this, what this means for the One Piece story going forward, what this means for us as fans. I mean, just the legends in the One Piece world and how this impacts them. Because this is not just about that man. This impacts so many other characters around him, and then the agency and the understanding and the honestly recognizing certain things from other characters. I'm like, what? Chapter 1154. Let's talk about it. So I think this is going to get lost. But chapter 1154 is mostly about Loki. Chapter 1154 is taking us on a journey to understand Loki, to have us see what Loki sees, to have us empathize with Loki, for us to see just exactly why he is the way he is, where before this, there was already justification. A lot of people were already on Loki's side saying, I get him. I completely understand why he is the way he is, and I stand with him. After this chapter, I think Loki, no doubt, you feel him, you get it, and you really understand the character. So I Can't Even Die resonates even more after the fact because I read a chapter a few times. And now, I'm like, damn, it's understood. Cover story. They're visiting a shrine. It specifically says a grave hero born in the West Blue and brought up in Ringo. So born in the West Blue, raised in Ringo. The first thought was Ushimaru, right? Because he is, descendant of Ryuma, the former daimyo. That's his spot, right? He's a hero that died for Wano. So I was thinking of Ushimaru, but Ushimaru, from what we know, he was born and raised in Wano. Born in the West Blue and raised in Ringo. It can't be Ushimaru, right? Who are we talking about? Because Onimaru is over there from Ringo in that area. So it starts to make you think about other characters. This chapter makes you think about another character as well that showed up at the end with that man. I'm like, okay, is this the character we're talking about? Does Oda finally end that story? You read the chapter. So I'm talking about Shiki. Is Shiki from Wano? Is this going to be where Oda effectively ends Shiki's story any way Shiki could come back? Here's the issue, though. Why the heck would Shiki be a hero of Wano? Unless he did something in the past, what we know of Shiki is that he is a bastard. He's somebody that does not care about anything other than teaming up and chaos. So for Shiki to be this guy that they're talking about doesn't make sense. Doesn't make much sense. Ushimaru's at the top of the list, or it could just be somebody new that Oda's introducing. And just like that, this cover story got from bland to interesting. Because if Oda's introducing a new character, it's storylines that could lead to so many different places. So guys, buckle up. I think things are getting pretty crazy. And it got pretty crazy in this chapter, so let's get to it. 63 years ago, Jaru's partner, was struck dead by the hands of a certain young girl. I know we're talking about different feats in this chapter and how people were killed at certain events, but this is an event that it's not talked about enough. A legendary giant got struck down by a kid named Charlotte Linlin 63 years ago. So for Linlin, she's a very interesting case because they're calling her a mere human, right? She has the epithet, of course we know that's Big Mom, but she was able to kill a legendary giant as a child. First of all, for a long time, I did not think Big Mom was human, right? And we saw her parents. Oda, I'm sorry. After this chapter, there's no way I can believe that. There's no way that's her parents, right? They probably wanted a kid, adopted her. There's no way Big Mom wasn't experimented on. She's a human? Maybe I'm tripping, but Big Mom, everything about her does not scream human at all. I'm willing to bet that some of Big Mom's kids, right? She slept with regular men and they came out looking like Hatakuri. You're like, what? So Big Mom has to be an experiment of some sort, right? Like what they did to Bonnie and Ginny. Maybe they did that to her mom and then she was just a mute. I don't know. But to call her a mere human, you're insulting my intelligence. Or she just could be a mere human and she's just like a freak of nature, but a human nonetheless. Either way, that's how this chapter begins. Let's talk about Elbaf. Where we are now, they're talking about what's going on in Elbaf. After Loki got born, string of tragedies, calamity after calamity. The weather's abnormal, then famine. And all this is happening on the back of they're saying Loki was born and is a cursed child. Now, There's speculation that Istrid just probably made it up, but then it's being validated by everything happening around Loki and his birth. So Istrid is saying, I told you guys, this is this child's doing. And she tried to get rid of it. She tried to chuck him down the mountain. He climbed back up, decapitated animals, and he's still here. He's still kicking. But she does not want anything to do with Loki. And, they're trying to say, yo, this could just be a coincidence where all this is happening in this year that he's born. She's like, no, I'm telling you, this kid is the problem. Get rid of him. But it's unfortunate because from the perspective of the child, he can't help himself. He was born, he looks away, and it's just, he is what he is, and his mom wants nothing to do with him. Of course, that's impacting Loki, and we see the impact of that later in the chapter. It got to the point where Loki is literally trying to reach his mom and trying to interact with his mom, and they have to keep him away from her because she's losing her mind, saying, don't let that monster near me ever again. Mind you, she's sick, and she's still screaming at the top of her lungs that she wants nothing to do with this child, and Loki is feeling it. They said this before, that sometimes children can just feel things, right? They can feel how people feel about them, and sometimes they remember not necessarily they don't remember specifically things about a person. They just remember how a person made them feel. So a child could just, like somebody could scare a child, just boo. And the child, of course, they don't remember specifics. They're like, the last time I was with this person, they made me feel a certain way. I want nothing to do with this person. So Loki, as a baby, is getting treated this way, and not just by Istrid, right? Of course, if the queen feels this way, other people are going to feel this way, considering what's happening in Elbaf. And Oda goes on to explain just how bad things got for the country, where giants were raiding other giants, right? They thought about raiding humans. I mean, they were doing that before, but now it's like, it's dire because people cannot eat. And when people are in danger, lives are in danger, people are hungry, they are willing to do anything to survive. And giants are the same way. Like when they were talking about just infighting amongst the giants, and they're like, yo, giants fight against each other? Like, well, Road said, well, don't humans fight against each other? And so giants are just like humans. They're just bigger, right? They have the same issues, same worries, same emotions, same wants. They're just bigger. And so now that becomes an even bigger problem, because to feed giants would be way more than just feeding humans. So now we have a big issue. And Oda is really laying that out in a way for us to understand just how dire things were and just how much was on Loki, considering what he was and who he was. It's bad. Oda does a great thing too of having us feel emotions through children. And I think that's an easy way for anybody to lock in and understand what somebody's going through. And he uses children to do it, where it's a mom talking to a child saying, that's the last bit of bread we had. Immediately you're locking in saying, okay, this is bad, right? Even in Wano, they had a panel, somewhat controversial, where a mom was about to kill her baby, considering just how much they were starving. And that sets the tone for exactly what's going on here. In the midst of that, though, Oda is showing a change in the land of the giants due to their best king. And I can unequivocally say, so far, Harold has been the best king we've seen in One Piece. He has been an amazing king, especially considering where he came from. Not perfect. No one is. But he has been a king that has made so many sound decisions, sacrifices, and just straight up choices to make not himself, but Elbaf a better country and to influence that country. Here we're talking about the child. So Oda's setting it up with like, this is how dire things are. But even in the midst of that, they talk about raiding humans. And they're like, whoa, that's going to bring shame to Elbaf. Like a giant is saying, that's going to bring shame to Elbaf, showing just how much the people and the mindset, the mentality of the people of Elbaf, it is shifting. We're like, that's the law of the land now. So let's go do it to other giants. All right, not humans. Other giants, let's do it. This is the way. This is the way. This is how things happen when people can't eat. People can't feed themselves, can't feed their family. They're going to try to figure it out. Infighting, raiding, right? Killing. Stealing. This is going to happen. It was happening in Elbaf because of how dire things were with the famine. And of course, it goes back to Loki, where the citizens start blaming Loki. It goes to the point where it goes from blaming Loki to blaming Loki's siblings, half siblings. Howard and they're chilling. They're like, yo, I heard a rumor about the prince. You his brother, right? I think you got to take that L for him, bro, because he got to die. So you got to say, what that got to do with me? That's my half, bro. That's not even my brother for real. We don't even talk. But, you know, that's just when people are going through it, everybody going through it. You ever been around people that when they mad, everybody got to be mad too? Like everybody got to feel when they mad, right? That's how it was in Elbaf. If I'm frustrated, you're going to be frustrated. I don't care what's going on in your life. There got a lot going on in my life, in my country right now, right? But let's continue. So Hirunden gets attacked by this rogue warrior saying, you got to take the blow for your brother, right? At the end of the day, that's your brother. You got to take the L for him. Attacks this kid. Ida, his mom is like, yo, what are you talking about? You talking about my son that's going to be the longest living man, right? And it's interesting. We got to wait on translations because it's the longest living man. So it's no real just singling out longest living giant, just longest living man, period. At the end of the day, seems like that's her dream, for Hirunden to live for a long time. And granted, that's a lot of parents' dreams. A lot of parents would love for their child to not only outlive them, but to live for a very long time, have a very prosperous and fulfilling life. And that's what Ida wants for Hirunden. He gets attacked. Of course, he's overrun by this grown man. Then the amazing King Harold shows up, puts an end to it, and then I think he tells something that I think is one of the greatest feats in One Piece. It's not going to get as much recognition because it's a small thing. But I think when you think of the scale of it, it is absolutely unbelievable. What I'm talking about is subscribing to the channel, right? Looking down, making sure you're subscribed, hit that button. I'd certainly appreciate it. Like the video as well, you know. But no, seriously, what I'm talking about is Harold saying that allied nations have come together to help them feed their country. Harold said, I heard about Loki's birth and the connection between that and the recent famine. What I was doing was building rapport with countries. How you build rapport? You go into their countries. You talk to the people. You learn the people. You establish this connection. You maybe even share some of your resources, the Atom wood, right? Different techniques that you have that helped Elbaf. You empower these other countries. Also, the strength of Elbaf, if a country feels like they could be covered by that, that's even more incentive to help Elbaf. Either way, they have 10. We don't know how many allied nations there are. Either way, all these allied nations came together to feed the people of Elbaf to ensure that they could satiate themselves and fill their bellies. Think about the scale. These are giants. So to feed them is on another level, right? To feed them in the midst of a famine is even on another level. To feed them when you're a human, right? Dealing with the world government and even the tax. You're doing these things while in the midst of trying to feed your country and feeding people 10 times your size and making sure that they're full. This is no small feat. This is an amazing feat, an amazing way that people in general came together to help each other. And Harold, he understands as such. He said, yo, we will graciously accept their aid, right? Bro, be grateful. And anytime these people will ever need our help, we will step up and make sure that we are there to lend their aid as well. So to lend them aid. And bro, when you think about it, you think about the connections between different countries like Wano and Zou, where at the end of the day, they are tied together. Now, I want to know who these allied nations are. Was it Alabasta? Was it Drum? Was it Kano Kuni? What are these nations? Who are these nations that came together to help Elbaf? Because eventually that reunion is going to happen again. They're going to come together again for whatever reason. The Giants, their help, it's going to be needed. But one thing that's also important, and this goes back to even things established beforehand, is the Giants have to come together, because the Giants still things going on in the midst of that because of not being from Elbaf, being from, right? And so that's why you needed with Loki and Hirunden to bring Giants together. Like Harold said in a previous chapter, that's what he wanted for Hirunden and Loki. But this is what the world should be. And that's why I commend Harold so much, considering where he was at the beginning. Remember, Harold at the beginning of the flashback, he was like, yo, look at what they're doing to us. I have to teach them a lesson. And over time, through Ida, he learned to listen, to appreciate humans for what they are. Yes, they're different, but they're still people, and we can learn a lot from them. They're creative. They're small, but they're creative. How much can we instill in our own country to help ourselves? That is a king that put his pride aside, humbled himself, right? Where it's not just about being strong, it's not just about being weak, because Ida gave him a great speech about you were just born big and strong. What if you're on the opposite end of that? Then what? So him taking that, right, and putting that aside and being willing to learn and listen and grow as a person, as a king. My kudos, my respect, because that is fantastic. So shout out to Harold, and that impacted the people too. Like I said before, there are other citizens saying, we can't raid humans, stain on our country. And now humans are helping us. Don't even have to be humans. Allied nations are helping us to feed us in the midst of a famine. Giants who, perception-wise, at the beginning of Harold's story, they said they were the people. They were terrorizing the world. Not single-handedly, but Harold is changing the perception of what the giants are. I think that is fantastic. It is underrated. Maybe we'll go unheralded, but I just wanted to point it out because I thought it was amazing. Now let's talk about Istrid, Loki, Harold, that entire saga. So Istrid is a generational hater. These people are not born every day, but when they're born, they don't last long, but they leave a great impact. Istrid was born, and she hated her child from the jump. We know she tried to kill him. She chucked him off the cliff. It's like, bye. Held it up. He climbed back up, and she was terrified. She was sick. She was trying to leave. She was sick. So she's sick, and she's still denouncing his name. It said that she was crapping on Loki till her last breath. So she hated this kid basically after she had him, so his entire life. From what he knows, mothers don't love children. She did that until she died. And again, because she was saying that, people were also saying that. People were affected by that. Now it's affecting how they treat Loki. And Loki himself, he's affected. So now they said that Loki gave up on love at a few months old. I'm like, bro, a few months old? You have no idea. But as a kid, again, you remember how people make you feel. And for him, love does not exist. At some point, it had to come back and he had to feel it again because Loki and Lola, So, but at that point, he gave up on love. And so some of his actions, some of his reasoning, some of his feelings is starting to make more sense. We're starting to get to the point where, like, Loki did nothing wrong. Loki was just a child that was abused and set aside, and he's taking out his anguish and his anger and his frustrations on the world, on everybody else, because he has nowhere else to put it. What does he do with it? Even if he takes it out on himself, what comes of it? Right? So, again, this chapter is about Loki. Ultimately, we saw, even with that man, we saw Loki and that man before in his flashback. And so, I don't want the main thing to get lost. I'm excited to talk about that. But the main thing, keep the main thing. The main thing was for Loki, he got abused. Right? Loki was failed by Elbaf. They failed him. I think even in the midst of his mother doing that, he should have been assigned to somebody else, because even after that, right? Talk about Harold's diplomacy and how that's starting to take shape for the connecting and the communication through other villages, where people are starting to lock in and buy in with Harold's message, where they're understanding why it's important, considering how they were saved through Harold's actions and his message, right? They literally were saved by humans and other people that were able to help them because of Harold. So now they're like, you know what? That might not be too bad, even amongst us, even amongst ourselves. So now the nation, this fractured nation, is being restored by this message, these actions, by leading by example through Harold. Loki was still being abused because Loki's then assigned, right, to Istrid's older brother. Here's my thing. She hated him so much that she died hating him. And, well, how do we salvage that? How do we make it better for Loki? We give him, essentially, to her older brother, who his first words in the story, canonically, is freak. That's what he says. That's the first thing we hear from him, freak. And that's his steward. Harold. Ida's right there. He can go live with his brother, have a motherly figure that actually cares about him right there. But for Harold, his mind is on, in his mind, bigger things, more important, not necessarily more important, but those things maybe were at the top of his mind more than Loki was. It was like, well, I'm leaving him with family. Is it really? Is it? So that was honestly, with Harold and his decisions, that's the main thing. I was like, Harold, why would you do that? Now, speaking of Ida, it seems like the tavern that Ida opened, where her and Hiruden were at, that's the tavern that Shanks and Colin were at. So what Ida did back then, it's the test of time. Of course, time for giants, it means something different, but that was her dream, and she's there living with Hiruden. Why couldn't Loki go live with her? Come on. I think that was the obvious choice, to go and live with her and grow in a much better way. Of course, the damage has been done, but he's still very malleable. There's a lot that could have changed in Loki's life, but you put him with his uncle who hates him. What are we doing? But shout out to Ida, man. Hiruden being the good person that he is, it makes a ton of sense considering Ida and her influence, not only on him, but on his dad as well. Big W's for Ida, man. Jarl and Harold, they mentioned Elbow that was training Hiruden. Not sure if that person's going to be relevant going forward, but the mention of that feels somewhat too out of place to be just left there, right? So I assume Elbow is going to play a part in not only Hiruden's growth, but maybe Loki's as well. So just something to remember. Elbow being thrown out there. Now, let's get to 56 years ago, that conversation between Jarl and Hiruden, because I think this sets up the end of the chapter where, let's talk about it. Here's my thing. They talk about a reverie incident. And I'm like, bro, so crazy things happen at these reveries, or has happened at the reverie. Security is tight. Not going to act like security. Security should be so tight, right? And I was going to say you need admirals there, but whoa. Even that sometimes doesn't even matter. However, this conversation is so important. So let's break it down real quick. So first thing, Harold was at the scene at the reverie. Harold said that a friend, one of the invited kings, smuggled him in. My first thought is, how the hell do you smuggle Harold in? How do you smuggle in this big giant right into the reverie without them knowing or noticing? Like, who? Because again, Harold wasn't the size of a regular giant. Harold was ginormous. However, if you're a bodyguard, you're expected to be bigger. I think, and he said his cover was about to be blown, because I'm assuming what happened is Harold comes in with his friend that's the king. They're like, yo, who's this new bodyguard? Oh, I found him at Sabo the Archipelago, right? I bought him, whatever. And they're like, oh, my God, is he as big as Oars or bigger? Where did you get him? We want one. Hey, my guy, you got any brothers? So people got really interested into Harold and who he is. How can they get one? I'm sure they probably tried to buy him from the king, just considering like who he is, his sheer size. And Harold, he's a built guy. Like, he's a big dude. So off of that, he said, yo, I might have been exposed, but something major happened. Like, what could have been bigger than Harold? Well, an admiral dying. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about it. Either way, just know for right now, right? Somebody died. A murder happened at the reverie. I'm like, bro, like, people be dying at these reveries. Like, I would just stop going. Either way, a murder happened at the reverie. When I was reacting this, I'm like, damn, yo, Shanks wasn't born yet. This is 56 years ago. 56 years ago, when they're talking about it, at least. So then Jarl goes into it saying, yo, if you were caught, right, this would be the least of your worries, but have you heard about the Warhammer giants? Or the Warhammer company, and they mentioned Galila. It was like, and the translation said it could be like a spin on Galila from Water 7. So I was like, okay, where are we going with this? And Harold says, oh, so they're a group of giants that armed themselves. Then Harold says they're a group of giants who armed themselves with warhammers, right? And they're shipwrights, giant shipwrights who armed themselves with warhammers. When you talk about shipwrights, you think about Water 7. Okay, Galila. So it's, okay, that's the connection a little bit, right? Right. But what he talks about is, Harold says, I thought that was just a myth. Jarl says, no, they were real. This was a real company of giants traveling far and wide. They were sending letters back to Elbaf. And he's like, I received the final letter and they all had been captured. Over 100 guys, think about it. Over 100 giants were captured, including ancient giants. And you got to think about it. The world government, were they responsible? Well, think about Punk Hazard, where literally we have an experimentation island where giants, ancient giants who are being experimented on, right? We're using this information to try to get bigger kids and develop different types of animals, hybrids. So these people, these giants that were captured, right? These ancient giants as well. The world government said, we need to recreate that. And of course, Punk Hazard was a place that when prisoners were caught, instead of sending them to Impel Down, they sent them to Punk Hazard to be experimented on. Right? So all this tying all this in. Punk Hazard being mentioned in 2025? Like, it's crazy. But what Jarl is saying is that this is not your fault why your ideals aren't working out. This is not just on you. The reason why they're not working out is a deeper problem. It's a deeper systemic thing going on, right? They have basically enslaved our people and experimented, enslaved our people, right? He doesn't know, I'm sure he has no idea necessarily about the experimentation. However, he's saying it could go deeper. It's not your fault that your ideals aren't working out, where he's trying to bridge the gap and have the giants, the Elbaf, right? Have Elbaf be a part of the world without necessarily being on the world government's control. And they're like, yo, it has nothing to do with you, Harold, right? And Harold mentions lingering animosity. He's like, well, and I love this conversation because it's a conversation about encouragement. It's an elder statesman telling this current king, don't falter. If you will, who else do we have to turn to? That's from War to 7, but I felt it was apt considering, right? But he's saying, yo, I've heard about a frozen army of giants somewhere, right? And our people could just be enemies, and the larger enemies of the world, figuratively and literally, where people are looking at us, and to bridge that gap, to get over that hurdle is going to be very difficult, but don't falter. And Harold is saying, I expected resistance. That's okay. That's fine to me because I expected resistance and I'm okay with the resistance because it's something that I thought that came with it. So I love the conversation. I'm loving the relationship between Ja Rule and Harold even taking on or accepting that responsibility and that burden, but not faltering and saying, that's cool. That's fine. I'm not going to stop. And I think that comes with like some of the greatest characters in anime. Let's stick to One Piece. Resolve, unrelenting will, right? That's the main part of it. For Luffy, that's where a lot of his power comes from. That's his greatest strength. I know what Mihawk said, but for Luffy, his undying will, him being relentless, not stopping. And for Harold, he has the same mentality. And that's why so much change has happened already in Elbaf. So I really, really enjoyed that conversation. Now back to Loki. Packed up his uncle. Thank you so much. I was getting tired of that uncle. He's like, let's see what kind of garbage we'll be serving up today, right? And Loki just waited. You see the progression of Loki aging. When they mentioned that his uncle was found in the realm of the dead, Loki had a smirk on his face. I'm sure they came and asked him, like, Loki, what happened? I have no idea, right? He was waiting to pack his uncle up. I was so happy about that. I know, but still, his uncle was hating on him ever since he was a kid. So it is what it is. So screw his uncle. So in the midst of this, again, Harold, a fantastic king. He has a dream to join Elbaf with many nations around the world. He would like it for the giant race to be welcomed everywhere around the world. And of course, in the meantime, his ideals are being pushed and they're being emboldened by people that live in Elbaf. And they're looking at Harold like, yo, his vision is working. This is what we need to do. So shout out to people of Elbaf as well for not necessarily conforming, but for seeing the vision and going along with it. So they're seeing that and they're like, yo, we respect Harold. We rock with Harold. This is our king. So you absolutely love that. But Harold is caught up with this. This is his focus. Loki is still there, unloved, not really getting the attention. And so he's developing a stigma. He's developing a mentality, a personality where he's inflicting his pain on others. People weak, he does not respect them because he's had to be strong his entire life. Ever since he's a child, he was thrown about. And so if you're weak, I do not respect you because I had to figure it out. And so for Loki, that pain was being passed on. Literally being passed on to everybody else. And he was forcing others to see his way or understand why he would respect that. He's a bad kid. But can you blame him? So for Loki, love is something that's foreign to him. For Harold and him extending these olive branches, trying to bridge these gaps, that is a form of love and compassion. Loki cannot understand that. He's saying, yo, Dad is playing nice with human insects. That's BS. And Harridan, of course, he's been raised with Ida, with love, with care, with attention. He's like, Dad went through hell to rebuild this village, rebuild the image of the Elbaf people. Don't destroy it. And Loki, like, bro, I don't care what you talking about. You're not even a real prince. You're an illegitimate kid. I am the rightful prince. You crazy? And bro, them acting the way they do, I get it. They're supposed to do that. Big W's to Gerd, because Gerd has been a real one ever since we saw her in the story, and she was a real one back then, where Harden's friends are saying, yo, let's stay away from him because Loki is going to think that we're his friend. Gerd's like, shut up. We are his friend. Let me go make sure my guy's okay. Shout out to Gerd. Big shouts out to Gerd. And again, for Loki, he hurt Harden, right? And Harden had a bunch of people go around him and say, yo, are you okay? And Loki has never had that. No matter what's happened to him, it's never been, are you okay? Right? It's so him seeing this, it's foreign to him. He's a bit envious. It's pain that he doesn't know how to process this information because it's never been there for him. Does not compute. It's sad, but it does not compute for Prince Loki. It's funny because Loki's justification then is like they're a group of weaklings huddled together. And his reasoning for it is because of Harridan's, his mom's filthy blood. Like all that happened. Loki boiled it down to Harridan's mom. Right? Mama issues. Clearly. Right? Everything that happened, he's like, because of your mom's filthy blood. They're like, what? What are you talking about? But with his upbringing, with everything he's been through, you get it. You understand it. So it says that Loki tried to destroy, he tried to hurt, he tried to inflict pain. It did not fill his heart. He even tried to kill himself. He can't die. And that pain from trying to die, trying to feel something. Let me feel something. Please, let me just feel. I can't get love. Maybe pain is where it's at. But he has to endure it because he can't even take the pain away for good. This is what he was dealing with as a child. And so he's crying. He's literally crying, saying, I can't even die, bro. I can't get love. I can't get, the pain isn't doing anything. I inflict it. I dish it out. I talk crap. I'm trying to kill him. I can't do nothing. What do I do? No purpose, no motivation, no future. Yes, I'm the king, but my people don't even love me. I need purpose. I need something to believe in. I need something that is going to fill this void within me. I need to feel something. And Loki at this point needs a dad, needs his father more than anything. What would have been amazing is Harold taking Loki on the journeys with him, going to see all these different people, giving him a father's love, genuine care. You can come home and pick him up like, oh my God, I love my son. He looks cool. And leave out again for another 6 months, but he's here by himself. And the person that you put in charge of him is causing more of the issues. How can you expect Loki to be any better when he's been blamed for everything that's happened in Elbaf and continuously, pain, suffering is on him. And he's supposed to be the prince? I'm the prince and you treat me like this? Nah, screw Elbaf. Screw all of y'all. When I become king, it's up for everybody. Can't blame him. So after that, we're here and Loki's, he's crying. And we see a mountain. A side of a mountain just gets cut off. It's like, yo, what's the deal with this island? Where's the welcome committee? Like, what the hell is going on? A few pirates meet Loki. The pirates are Shiki and Whitebeard. That's what we see initially. So then you look at this page. Whitebeard, Shiki, Stussy. And then, okay, this is the first ever time we see Rox D. Xebec in the flesh. His entire face, no silhouette, his entire design. Blackbeard with a wig. That's the first Blackbeard with a wig. Now, when I first saw it, the first thing that goes through my mind is, damn, that's Roxy Xebec. He looks just like Blackbeard is Rox. He looks just like him. So did he just do something to live a longer time? He is Blackbeard. You read the smaller text. Father of the Emperor Blackbeard. Bro! So you're telling me that Roxy Xebec is Blackbeard's literal father? But it doesn't end there. Roxy Xebec being Blackbeard's literal dad, right? He was at the Reverie. That was the guy Harold spotted 8 years ago during the Reverie. Not only that, Harold, or Roxy Xebec, as far as we know, is the only person that killed a Navy HQ admiral, then vanished. Earned him a massive bounty and the government's ire. I understand completely why Roxy Xebec has been banished from even being talked about. He doesn't exist. He's never existed. I get it. Killed a Navy admiral at the Reverie. First off, what the hell is he doing at the Reverie? So I'm assuming he was a king, right? Either was a king or he was an escort, he was a bodyguard. He was at the Reverie, killed someone, and he dipped out, and now his son is trying to get invited back? No! No way! But I have so many questions. I have so many questions about this Roxy Xebec guy. Now, it makes sense him being in Loki's flashback because we saw him already, right? He beat Loki's ass and kept it pushing. But imagine this Loki right now, lost, without purpose, devoid of hope, dream, goals, meeting a group as ambitious as this, with this much aura, with this much presence. It is suffocating. Loki had no chance meeting Roxy Xebec at a time like this. And again, they're looking for Harold. They're trying to meet Harold. Now, technically, Roxy Xebec saved Harold's life unintentionally because he murdered an admiral. However, it happened. But this is Roxy Xebec, Blackbeard's dad. Now, I'm not calling the One Piece world and the top tiers Nepo babies, but however, in a story of inherited will and passed down will, yes, parents are going to be strong. They're going to be people that have parents in high places. I think Mihawk could have a dad that's really famous. Right? And I'm not mad at it. I love seeing Roxy Xebec here. I love how Oda set it up. I love how Oda's built it. And here's the thing. He's not even the captain of the Rocks Pirates right now. They just rolling around together. That's not even what the crew is right now. He has Whitebeard, Sheik, and Stu. What? For a long time, Roxy Xebec had not been substantiated. There was propaganda out there, hearsay, all these things. This is the first time, I think, that Roxy Xebec has been solidified where there's no doubt his standing in the One Piece world. Taking out an admiral, going to the Reverie, and this is him before the Rocks Pirates were even formed. So you got to understand. You have to understand just the impact of this guy. Oda said, Roger's greatest rival. And now this is Blackbeard's dad? Then you start to think of the link, right? How did Blackbeard find out about this? Does he know? Sure he knows by now, but how did this bridge happen? Whitebeard, did you know? Roger, did you know? It's so many different things that's happening that I have questions to, and boy, I'm gonna talk about them. But Roxy Xebec showed up in this chapter, and it's a major game changer because now we know Blackbeard. That's Blackbeard's daddy. That's his daddy. For a fact. The Saber Xebec, not an uncle, not no will. That's his dad. And his dad was a problem. His dad was a major problem. And now he's going to meet Harold. Why? And he already has these guys. Why? Who is this man? Taking out an admiral and still walking around freely? He's him. And then we're not going to delve too much into it this video, but he sliced down a mountain casually. Then we saw his fingers. There are a few characters that we know use their fingers with their powers, right? The leading candidate right now is the Opie no Mi with Law. Number 2 is the dice fruit with Buggy. And 3 is the Ito with Doflamingo. I think that's more not believable just because what rocks is supposed to be, the Opi no Mi would be the most logical, considering rocks, considering his existence being erased, considering what we know about the Opi no Mi and how powerful it is. The dice fruit. That would be interesting. That would be really interesting. Very interesting. I would love for him to be the user of the Chop fruit, Buggy's devil fruit, because oh my god, I think the memes would be glorious. And again, we see the potential in Buggy's fruit, and if we can see Xebec just slicing things casually, pure cinema. This is an amazing reveal. I like how Oda built the chapter up because at the end of the day, like I said at the beginning of the review, this is about Loki. Yes, we're going to make this chapter about Xebec. He's going to be talked about a lot. He's going to be the focus of it. Him killing an admiral, him doing all this and working. But this is about Loki's development in the world. This is not even Rocksteady Xebec time. This is not even God Valley time. So to reveal this right now, Oda has a purpose. But the purpose, I think, is showing could be Loki's future, but also why this guy would impact him so much. Not saying this is confirmation that Loki's joining Blackbeard's crew, but something to think about at least. At this point in the story, revealing Rocksteady Xebec, all full out, entire design, possible insane devil fruit. I am floored. Bro, Blackbeard or Xebec's design is fantastic. The hair is amazing. The scar, right? He looks like a problem. And you think back to the silhouettes of Kaido, what he saw, like, dog. Now, did Oda have this planned all along? Was Rocksteady Xebec going to be Blackbeard's dad all along? Probably. Maybe. But this is the freedom you have when you can be valuable, right? Guys, I have a lot more to say about Rocksteady Xebec, but we will have another video for that. So guys, give me your thoughts. How do you feel about this entire chapter? How do you feel about Rocksteady Xebec and his impact? Do you think he's Himothy? Because I think no question he is Himothy. Like the video, subscribe. And I will thank you to my patrons as well. Thank you to my patrons. You guys support. You help make this happen so much. Thank you to my patrons. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Yes.